Hello and welcome. It is 11 o'clock. It is the 29th day of July. Yes, I'm pretty sure it's the 29th day of July, not the 29th day of August. Though I could be wrong. I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the OGGM, and let's address this whole human-centric, human-only role-playing discussion that's been wandering around for the past couple weeks, because I don't know why this is... Well, I do know why this is a thing. I think people are just approaching it the wrong way and getting all kerfumpety over a not thing. And I think this started because, as we know, Wizards of the Coast seems to roll out a new playable race every couple weeks for the game. And a lot of people are like, I don't want somebody being an owl folk or a tomato folk in my game. And so I just want a more human-centric role-playing game. And you know what? If you don't want an owl folk or tomato folk in your game, that's fine. Remember, those are all optional. Say that again. Optional. If you read the player's handbook, even tieflings and drow and dragonborn and gnomes are all optional races. The only races that are core are human, elf, dwarf, halfling. Everything else is an optional race. You don't have to allow it if you don't want to. If you want human-centric role-playing games, great. Don't play D&D. Play a human-centric role-playing system. Off the top of my head, Conan, Pendragon, both humans. The Black Company role-playing game, if you can find a copy of it, all humans. Three Musketeer role-playing game, all humans. There are tons of human-only role-playing games out there. You could also use a system like True 20 or Savage Worlds or GURPS or whatever and just build your own human-only role-playing game. But if you're going to run D&D, you got to accept that there is this Fellowship of the Ring, Middle-earth home base that is at its core what D&D is. Humans, elves, dwarves, halflings. You could say the non-human races are rare, like they were in the Third Age. The chances of a human ever encountering an elf or a dwarf or a halfling are extremely rare. You could say that I played in one game where everybody started as humans, and elves and dwarves were special characters that you were only available for one shots, or you had to do something special to earn one. There was sort of like a cookie that the DM dangled over everybody's head, like if you want to be an elf, you want to be a Dunedain, you want to be something like this, you got, it's your birthday present, or you got to really role play great. It's not the best way to have it done, but the idea of these are special characters that only show up at certain times, and the world is mostly human is fine. But still, you sort of have to accept that if you're gonna play D&D at its core basicness, elves, dwarves, and halflings are out there somewhere. You don't have to have any of the other races if you don't want to. As player characters, they're optional. If somebody comes crying to you and says, but I want to be a half tiefling, half vampire, transgender, cupcake selling half orc, you can say one of three things. You can say, no, I'm not allowing that in my game, but let me help you find somebody who might allow that in their game. Or you could say, fine, I'll let you be a tiefling, but you have to understand, you're the only tiefling in the world as far as you know, and everybody's going to treat you like that. Or you could say, you know what, I don't have tieflings in my game. Maybe we can work together to have a happy medium. What's the reason you want to be a tiefling? Is it just because you want some demonic, tormented past in your character's history? Well, couldn't you just be a human who has some demon blood? And, maybe that's something that manifests as you adventure. Maybe, when you're angry, your eyes glow, and something we can build on, but I'm not allowing tieflings. So there's a couple different ways you could approach the optional races. And you could also just say, you know what, I'm not using Luxodon in my game because they're only in Ravenica, and I'm not using Ravenica. I'm only using the 3 core books plus 1 source book. So yeah, there's no Luxodons. There's no owl folk because that world isn't part of my world. And sure, you're going to run into players that are going to argue with you, and you can either try and work with them, or you can just say, you know what, I'm sorry, this is going to be an argument. We're just going to keep going round and round. I'm not allowing that in my game. If you can't accept that, that's fine. Here, let me direct you to another DM. They might allow that in their game. Or you know what? Start your own game, dude. If that's what you want in your world, then you run a world where those are available, and I'll let you run and I'll play, because you know what? Running is exhausting. But at the end of the day, they're optional. So if owl folk are upsetting you, don't go, oh, I want blah, 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 humans only. Just be like, I'm not living, it's it. But D&D is, at its core, humans, elves, dwarves, halflings. If you want humans only, that's great. Don't run D&D. Run Conan. Run Pendragon. Run the Three Musketeers. Run the 30-Year War. Run a pirate game. Run Egypt game. Fantasy Egypt, where there are no non-humans, but there's these like alligator people, but they're all evil and stuff. I don't know, Conan, Pendragon, the Black Company, Blue Rose. There's hundreds of systems out there that are all human-centric and built around fantasy versions of the Earth, or other fantasy series besides the Lord of the Rings, but D&D is the Lord of the Rings. And I, for one, like the idea of non-humans. I don't really want to role play in a human-centric world. If I had a choice between living in medieval England or living in the Shire, I'm choosing the Shire, because medieval England sucked. Really. King Arthur and chivalry and the knights, and they were fantastic, and it was a horrible place and a horrible time period where horrible things happened all the time. No, I'd rather live in the Shire. I'd rather know that, I might have a chance at one point in time to walk through Rivendell, as opposed to living in a world where that is never an option. I mean, sure, Conan is fun and awesome, and it's an interesting world, and the Black Company, that's a great world, and I probably would love to play in a Black Company game at some point in time, but at the end of the day, I fell in love with Lord of the Rings. It's one of the reasons why I play D&D, and that's something I want. You don't have to want it, that's just me. And you can run your D&D game any way you want. But really, if you're just so hung up on human-centric, human-only, that it's such a stopping point for you, and you want D&D to not be D&D because D&D has elves and dwarves and halflings in it, well, don't run D&D. Really, it's that simple. Run a game that lets you have a human-centric world and isn't going to cause trouble. But that's just my 2 cents, and what do I know? Just thought I'd throw my shoes in this argument for the sake of generating heat. Woo, heat! I am your grumpy guide to all things gaming. If you appreciate this content, let me know. If you don't appreciate this content and think I should shut up, let me know. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Help me hit 1,000 subs by 2025. Woo! 475 by my birthday. Can we do it? Probably not. Till next time, stay warm, stay dry, stay healthy, stay happy, stay sane, stay calm, stay off my land. And for Frodo, and may the Force be with you.